I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today for the Plus Group webinar series. Today's topic is selling disability income insurance with conviction. And our presenter today is Rosemarie Rossetti. Did I say it right, Rosemarie?
Yes.
President of Rossetti Enterprises Incorporated. She is an accomplished speaker, consultant, and author. Please note that all lines will be muted during this webinar. If you'd like to ask a question, just go to the question pane on your control panel and type it in. We will address the questions at the end of the webinar. Also note that we are recording the webinar. It will be sent to you along with the presentation in a follow-up email, and you should receive that in about 24 hours. So you should receive that tomorrow. It also will be hung on our Plus Group website at www.plusgroupus.com. Okay, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Rosemarie.
Well, thank you. I am your biggest advocate to help you in selling disability income insurance. I don't sell it myself, but I'm an advocate from the standpoint of someone who has had a disability and had a policy. So I'm the claimant. And possibly you haven't heard the claimant's point of view for a while, so let me share it with you. I'm not just going to tell you my story. It's much more than that. I have been speaking to insurance companies and organizations for several years, and I've got a lot of information that I think is going to help you to build your practice so that you'll sell more policies. When I talk about selling disability income insurance, I talk about the conviction. I talk about the faith. I talk about the promise. I talk about the passion. And of course, since I've had a disability now for the past 17 years, I am one of the people who really understands the importance of having a policy and how the benefit has helped me to move on. I recommend that you take notes during this presentation. There may be some ideas that you can use immediately to help you to make more sales possible. So as we begin, let me tell the story of what happened to me that caused me to have a disability. On the screen, you're seeing a bicycle trail, a bicycle helmet, the headlines from the newspaper. This was on June 13th, 1998. My husband and I went for a bicycle ride on this trail in Ohio. I live in Columbus. This was in Granville, close to my home. It was a beautiful day for a bike ride, a Caribbean blue sky, no wind, no rain, no threat of storm. When suddenly, my husband heard what he thought was a gunshot. It got his attention and he slowed down to investigate. Then I heard him tell me, "Look over there, something's falling." Then he yelled, "Stop," as a caution to me, but it was too late. You see what had happened? When he looked over, he saw a tree and it was halfway to the ground. And literally in an instant, I was struck and crushed by a 7,000-pound live tree, followed by the live power lines. Instantly, a spinal cord injury, paralyzed from the waist down. That's the injury, that's the disability. No one expects to be disabled in their lives, and this particular incident was coming to me as a traumatic shock. I ended up at Dodd Hall at the Ohio State University for the summer of 1998. This photograph shows me in the neck brace, totally paralyzed from the waist down, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I had two businesses at the time, a speaking and training business as well as a publishing company. I then got home from the Dodd Hall Rehabilitation Center in July of 1998. Mark drove into the garage and he showed me the bicycle. I mean, take a good look at the frame there. It was kind of like a pretzel, the way the tree and the impact of that 7,000 pounds really crushed the frame. And look at that front tire. It's folded in half like a taco shell. A close-up of my helmet, I think, is worth a lot to you as you consider how important that helmet was to saving my life and to saving me from brain injury. I had no concussion. I lived through this event. If I had not had this insurance, if I had not had this helmet on, I may not be here today. Now here's the takeaway for you. The analogy of using my helmet as a bike analogy. Do you have the ability when you're talking with a prospect of sharing with them, do they wear helmets? Do they wear seat belts? Do they wear protective equipment when they're in sporting events or when they're riding a motorcycle or when they're in their car? They realize that accidents can happen, and they take the insurance to protect their body from harm by using equipment. Perhaps this helmet analogy would be important for you. My conclusion is that helmet was as important to me in saving my life as my disability income insurance was in saving my financial future. I'd like you to meet my husband, Mark. Mark Later and I have now been married 20 years. At the time of the injury, only a 3-year-old marriage, coming home now to an invalid. I mean, that was the reality, for me to be in the wheelchair and for him to be my caregiver. Not only did my income suffer, so did my husband. He was employed in sales at the time, and as you might expect, he had a lot more responsibility taking care of me and visiting me in the hospital than he did in his sales. So we had 2 incomes as a 2-income family. Immediately my income stopped from my training company and my publishing company, and his income almost stopped for a long time until he got back into the swing of things to start selling things again. I want you to understand that because someone is disabled doesn't mean that that person is the only one affected by their income stream. And many times people that aren't 2-income families have an even tougher time. I also want you to know that when the disability happens, many times the marriage doesn't survive. In fact, my doctor told us, quite frankly, that most of the patients he's ever worked with that had a spinal cord injury ended their marriage. It's a very difficult time for people to adapt to the change, and I'm so happy that Mark stayed with me. He was the kind of guy that never gave me any doubt that he was going to stay in the marriage. I want to talk about something very important to you to understand why did I have a disability income insurance policy? How did that happen? I was self-employed at the time of the injury. However, my disability income insurance came to me when I was a faculty member at The Ohio State University. I was teaching public speaking and teaching methodology there for 11 years. And this was just one of my benefits, to have a disability income insurance policy. It was through the Ohio State Teachers Retirement System. So while I was on the faculty, I was totally covered with a DI group policy. Now here's the interesting part. I resigned in January of '97 from the university to start Rossetti Enterprises, my speaking and training and consulting company. But my disability income policy was portable and was able to go with me as I left the university for a 2-year period. So I left the university in January of '97, got hit by a tree in June of '98. My disability policy was intact through the Ohio State Teachers Retirement System. But another interesting component, as a self-employed entrepreneur, I had been advised by many, many experts who were helping me to start the business that I needed to have an individual DI policy when my group policy expired, and I was ready to go forward at that point. Another analogy I'd like to give you, after coming home from the hospital, I went to my family physician. During one of my early appointments with her, she asked me, "Rosemarie, is it time for your tetanus shot?" And I looked at her and I said, "Doctor, you've got my records. I don't remember when I've had my last shot. I'm curious, do you know if you're current on your tetanus shot? It actually lasts 10 years. Well, do you even know what the insurance is for? It's like an insurance policy, a shot in the arm. Tetanus is a very serious disease. You can get it from gardening just by the soil that impacts going into the skin through maybe a cut in your hand, and then the tetanus, the lockjaw, becomes a part of you. It's a very serious illness where you can't chew, you can't swallow. It could be deadly. So here's the analogy to help you sell more DI. Ask your prospect if they're currently getting immunizations for tetanus, for flu, you name it. There's a lot of different vaccinations that people get because they don't want the disease or the illness. There's the analogy. They realize that illnesses happen, and illnesses can cause a temporary or permanent disability. Therefore, the conversation will be easier to have as you talk about the importance of insurance. It's my belief that DI is the most undersold product in the entire insurance industry. That's why it's so important for you to be paying close attention today. And this is being recorded, so if you don't catch it all, take it on the replay and watch it again. But do listen to me, and if something's important, something comes to mind, take some notes. My first important public service announcement is get a policy for yourself. I don't know if you've already got one, and if you've got one that's appropriate, but go and look at your policy and see if you are properly insured. It would be so embarrassing for you to have a meeting with a prospect and they start asking you questions about your policy and you don't have one and you're so embarrassed you just look down at the floor and say, well, I haven't bought one yet. Save yourself from the embarrassment and go get your occupation class from the insurance company you work with. Find out if they have a special employee discount that you can take advantage of. Do the calculations on how much disability income insurance you need to cover perhaps a 60% of your income. And then fill out that application. Go to the Plus Group office or where you work, get that application either online or in the file drawers and start filling that out now so that you can be a much more convicted salesperson. Here comes the part about why the disability insurance was so important to me. I'm revealing to you some of the actual costs of my disability. The first is the Ohio State University, where I was a patient there for a period of time as an inpatient. I also was there as an outpatient for 2 years, 3 days a week. Grant is another hospital. That's where I was for the emergency surgery, and I spent 5 days in intensive care. Mount Carmel was another hospital that I was a patient of, and this was right after coming home. I got a blood clot in my leg and had to go back into a hospital to have that blood clot removed. My surgeon bill is up there, as well as the cost of my personal home aide, my assistant. I was so weak I couldn't even push myself in the wheelchair on carpet. I couldn't get through doorways. I couldn't get into bed or out of bed, get dressed or take showers, let alone get in and out of my house. And I needed her to drive me to my doctor's appointments and therapy, plus the life flight. So there is a total on the screen of the cost early on of having my spinal cord injury. I wanted to bring an older photograph on for you. The woman that is outlined in the rectangular yellow is Yolanda, my personal home health assistant. She was the one that came as my employee from July of '98 when I first got home from the hospital until the following May of '99 when I was first able to drive my wheelchair modified van. Yolanda at that time gave me a deal. These are in $98, $99. She charged me $10 an hour as a private pay. I used her part-time for that period of time with a total payment to her of $7,000 that was not covered by my medical health insurance and was not covered by my DI. That had to come out of my checking account. And where did the money come from for my checking account? It came from my disability income insurance benefits, which every month was automatically deposited into my personal checking account so that I could make her payments. I want to do a comparison. I thought this was an interesting piece of information for you. As I compared the $7,000 I spent on her What would it be in today's dollars here 17 years later? The average is $19 an hour, no longer $10 an hour. So based on a 6-hour day, 5 days a week, you're at $29,000. The family needs to understand this that you're speaking with, to understand the real cost of having a disability and the need for having your income protected. The van that I was in 1999, I finally picked it up in May, was a Dodge Grand Caravan. The cost to buy that van was $28,000. To modify it for the wheelchair accessibility was another $15,000. So a $45,000 investment so that I could be independent and drive with hand controls with a wheelchair van. Now that van I used for 14 years. It had 140,000 miles on it. 2 years ago I had to sell it, and I replaced it with the Honda Odyssey that you see on the screen. This van, in today's dollars, with the same vehicle modification, is a $65,000 investment. Again, another reason to have the conversation with your prospects, to help them understand that when you have a disability, you oftentimes have some unexpected expenses to get you back on the road again. Disability income. Let me share with you some other value points. The photograph was taken in therapy as I was learning how to stand on my hands and knees to do some gardening again. But as I think about the importance of the insurance, it was like my bike helmet, as I mentioned before. It had an immediate source of income replacement. And I know the term income protection and income replacement are much better terms as you're having a conversation than disability income insurance. The prospects can't imagine themselves being disabled, but they can imagine themselves having an interruption of their income stream. As we look at how we use the terminology of income protection, that's actually the benefit of what this insurance has. Typically, when we talk about life insurance, we don't talk about it as death insurance. No, we talk about it as life insurance, the benefit that it offers. For me, the income was a focus on my recovery, and it was allowing me a familiar lifestyle so that I didn't go into debt. I never lost a payment on this house. This is the home we were living in at the time in Columbus, a 2-story home. We had to invest into a power lift so that I could get into the home because there were 3 steps at the front entrance. That was a $10,000 modification just to have that porch lift put in. I was very fortunate that the Ohio Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation paid the $10,000 to put that lift in, and also paid $15,000 of the modification for that white Dodge Caravan that's parked in the driveway. Many of the mortgages that are foreclosed are because the family has had an interruption of income due to a disability. But in my case, I never lost a beat. As a result of the frustration of living in the house that did not afford me independence, my husband and I set out on a journey to create our new home, which you're seeing on the screen now. This is our home in Columbus, the Universal Design Living Laboratory. It is serving as a national demonstration home of universal design, accessible design, and green building. If you'd like to see our home, we've got a really cool virtual tour. If you go on our website, udll.com, you'll be able to go through our house from your computer mouse, just like a Google map. This home is the top-rated home in North America, having 3 national certifications on universal design. We're also LEED certified silver and also gold certified by the National Association of Home Builders on the National Green Building Program. If it wasn't for disability income insurance, I would never have had the finances to be able to build this amazing home. I was also supported by over 200 corporations that were sponsoring this home, providing me products and services so that we could utilize it to to help showcase their products in the marketing of our home. Just one of the benefits, again, of having my income restored. My husband wanted to tell his side of the story. From his perspective, it definitely reduced his stress that he knew that the income was restored every month into my checking account. To him, it was a safety net, and he decided to start his own business at home and quit the job he had so that he could be a better caregiver and move on a new direction and be a website designer. I also want to tell you something very personal, very private. Many people don't understand how a marriage is affected when a member of the marriage now has a disability. Our marriage was under close scrutiny, and we were arguing and fighting a large part of the time. We knew we had to get marriage counseling because we wanted to protect what we had started. For a full year, we had marriage counseling. They measured our depression, and as you might expect, on a depression scale, my husband was more depressed than I was. He had a whole loss of spirit, a loss to go on. He was just overwhelmed with responsibilities now, with me out of commission. I just want to stress with you, it's not just the physical part of the disability, but it's the mental part. It's the depression that is also real and causes the people involved with the relationship to really step back and look at themselves in another perspective. Will they make it through as a married couple or not is dependent on a lot of factors and the support. Many of you are using statistics and resources and probably can quote them very easily in terms of the percentage of the time that a disability happens from an injury or an accident, the likelihood of a disability in any given year based on your age. For those of you who don't know these statistics, you can go online very quickly when this webinar is over and go to these two websites. They're both from the Council for Disability Awareness. The Council for Disability Awareness has wonderful programs. It's disabilitycanhappen.org and Defend Your Income. There's lots of tools you can use to calculate how much disability income insurance you need. You can also show it to your prospects. There's a lot of great information that's available to you anytime you have a computer on. A second organization, this nonprofit called Life Happens, is the organization that promotes Disability Insurance Awareness Month every May. In fact, I was their national spokesperson in 2011. And I still have the videos that they asked me to do on my website so that there is a video for you as well as a video for your prospect to watch, telling my story and telling the importance of a disability policy. My website is rosemariespeaks.com. Lifehappens.org is the website for the nonprofit supporting the awareness for disability insurance. I want to give you some more specifics on sales tips. I gathered these from the financial representatives and sales agents that had wonderful knowledge and experience. This is how they built their practice. In fact, their advice to me was that a new agent should start out selling DI, that it would cause them to have a much wealthier business than starting out with life insurance. In fact, it's my belief that the importance of disability insurance is far greater than life insurance based on the likelihood of a disability versus a death in any given year. So my first idea for you is helping you and your prospecting, looking for that ideal client. Who is the person that you're looking for? Who comes to mind for your next call, for your next appointment? You're looking for someone who's working full-time between the ages of 30 and 50. You're looking for a sweet spot on the income scale. Each company you work with will have their own income range, and each company you work with will have a preference on blue collar, gray collar, or white collar. And so as you target your prospects, have in your mind who the ideal client is. And indeed, where do they work? What are their occupations? listed on the screen are a few, just to joggle your mind, thinking in terms of, do you know some attorneys that you could possibly start prospecting, or an architect, or who do your children go to school with and you know these parents, or who lives next door, who goes to your clubs and organizations. As you're looking at this screen, thinking in terms of these occupations to target, think in terms of names now that you can start a list today and get on the phone after this webinar and start making some initial conversations happen. As you're having the initial conversation, perhaps these will help you in terms of, let me help you with your priorities. Let's get you in a position to protect your assets. Do you have a plan suddenly if your income would cease? People have difficulty understanding that they could be permanently disabled. It's a lot easier for them if you have the conversation, they may be temporarily disabled and cause them to not be able to go to work for a few months or maybe a year. They just can't comprehend that something very tragic could happen, or they're having a diagnosis of an illness or a disease which suddenly puts them out of the workforce. So perhaps these lead-offs could be of value to you as you're closing more sales. Looking at your disability insurance from the point of view of your warm leads, your existing clients, who is in your database now? What folders do you have of existing clients that you've sold maybe a life insurance or a retirement program but have not yet had that conversation with them? I feel that it's a lot easier to make a sale when you've got an existing client who already trusts you and wants your recommendations, rather than a cold call to a brand new prospect. So call those without adequate insurance or without any insurance. In fact, many of these people you may not have contacted for a year or two. They may have changed jobs, they don't work there anymore, and they may have a higher income bracket needing more coverage. Another tip for you in terms of selling DI, share statistics. You can get them off of the websites that I mentioned. They're very powerful statistics to help you. But I think more importantly, more strategically, whenever you're going to be successful in sales, I think you're going to connect to the emotions of the prospect, of the potential buyer, rather than with just the cold statistics about the likelihood of a disability. Perhaps you can share a story about someone that you've helped and sold a policy and they collected on it. You also have my permission today to use my story. Maybe the client has someone in their family they can talk about, or a neighbor or a friend, and they can share a story about someone. It is part of the financial security. As you're talking about insurance, DI is just one of many, including homeowners insurance, health insurance, and life insurance. It all goes into the financial security discussion. Again, the reminder of my tetanus shot or other immunizations and my bike helmet analogy might be useful to you in building that logical, persuasive argument, leading them to understand the need is there to make this purchase now. Look at your contract, look at that of the competition. Many of the buyers are shopping online. Many of the buyers are getting competitive quotes. Be ready to show the strengths and weaknesses and explain the definitions of disability and other terminology that make your policy stand out. There will be objections. These are possible closes for you. These are hints that they're interested. This is one of the most common ones you're going to hear. They say, I can't afford it, it's too expensive, it doesn't fit in my budget. Here's my comeback suggestion. I ask them, if you think it's expensive now, wait until your income stream dries up and you have no income. You've got to change your budget and change your priority, because your income stream could just suddenly dry up someday and lead to a really expensive financial difficulty. The other second objection that I typically hear is they say, I don't need any individual DI, I've got a policy at work. Well, my comeback to that is ask them to bring it in so you can compare it and see what their gap is. Is their commission covered? Is it really what they want? do they need a supplement for that group policy? What it's going to take in sales is for you to get on the phone, to get on the email, to go out in the community, to meet prospects, to call existing clients, and make those appointments. That's your role as the trusted agent, the financial planner, the financial representative. You've got something that is definitely needed to protect families. That was your motivation to get into this business. This is now your motivation to help make these calls, to make some sales. To help those of you who need additional training beyond this webinar, here's my offer. I am now offering to you a consultative sales coaching program that I do either by phone or in person if I'm actually delivering a live presentation in your area. I will take from one person up to 5 people on these group coaching programs. They last 3 months with phone calls every other week for about 9 to 12 hours of time with me, plus unlimited emails and unlimited phone calls. So if there's a group of you that want to get together, of 5 or less, or just one of you wants to contact me, I'll be more than happy to discuss how I can help you to be more successful. For those out there in the Plus group that want to bring me in for a live presentation or a live seminar, I'm available beyond the scope of this webinar with additional information. This is my contact information. It's very easy to remember. It's Rosemarie at rosemariespeaks.com. I'm here in Columbus at 614-471-6100. Feel free to go to my website anytime, and you can see a lot of these demo videos from similar programs that I've done out in the field. I also have found that many of the agents want to buy a copy of my book, Take Back Your Life, for a group of prospects that they're about to meet. This is a book of motivation. This is a journey of my recovery after the spinal cord injury. They are deciding to use this with their business card and give it to prospects. They said, Rosemarie, your story helps me sell disability insurance. So they're buying a dozen of them at a time at a discount from me and then using those as incentives for prospects to help bring the conversation forward. For those of you who want a single copy, you can get that off my website at $9.95 a copy. But for groups, call me and I'll sell them to you at a bulk discount. I hope you conclude with me that disability income insurance, you just can't live without it. It is a critical part of the financial plan, and it's your obligation and responsibility to bring it up every time you have conversations with your prospects and existing clients. With that, the content has been delivered, Tracy. It's now for the deeper dive. I'd like to know, Tracy, does anyone out there have a question for me?
Again, if you guys have a question, you go to your dashboard and type it in. Just go ahead and type it and we will address them. In the meantime, Rosemarie, what kind of questions do people usually ask you after one of your presentations?
Well, one of them is they ask me, do I have any restrictions from the Ohio State Teachers Retirement System? You know, I am fully disabled because I have the loss of use of my legs, so that qualifies me for a total disability. But under the laws and regulations of the Ohio State Teachers Retirement System, the only occupation that I'm not allowed to go into is going back into teaching. And so that is the only restriction. Another question that sometimes comes, they want to know how long the Ohio State Teachers Retirement is going to keep sending me checks. And I needed to know that too. And I called them to make sure that my benefits were intact. And indeed they are. It's until I die. I am still going to be covered through the Ohio State Teachers Retirement. Not only now, but in 3 years I will turn 65, and then I will be going to their additional health insurance program through the Medicare program, where now I'm on their own insurance program. So they're going to keep me going until I'm no longer alive. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful insurance program for me to have. It's very much peace of mind for me.
Great. Oh, there are some questions coming in. Are there any specific carriers you recommend through your research for an agent new to DI prospecting?
I'm not going to be privileged to anyone since I work for a lot of companies and a lot of organizations.
I would recommend to that person, Ryan, I would contact your local Plus Group office, and they can tell you which companies they work with and help you out with that. That would be my recommendation. And Ryan, if you don't know who your Plus Group person is, I'll be happy to get that information for you. So, yeah, that would be something you need to speak to one of our experts about. Someone asked about the bulk. You were talking about bulk. I'm not sure. They said they missed that part. I don't know if it was when you were talking about the book, or was there something else you talked about?
I think it was the book. Some
okay.
people are buying 10, 12, 15. Okay. Somebody bought 100 of them. If anybody wants to buy copies of my book in bulk, not just one at a time, I will offer discounts if they buy 10 or more. And just contact me direct, and I'll send those over to you.
Anything else you think we should cover, Rosemarie?
Well, another question that has often come to mind is they've asked me, do I have long-term care insurance? And my husband and I both wanted to make sure that we had some type of insurance because I can't take care of him because of my disability if something were to happen to him, and he, if something were to happen to him, can't be taking care of me. So I went out about a year ago on a search to see if I could get a long-term care insurance policy. And here's what I found out in my research. I am not eligible. Every single company said, because I have a pre-existing disability, I cannot get a long-term care insurance policy. So for peace of mind, here's what I did instead. I bought an annuity with a rider for my care needs so that I'd have either nursing home facility care, assisted living care, or even better yet, just stay in my own home and have care in my home with an hourly personal care attendant. So those are also insurance needs that families have.
Okay. Someone asked if you're a licensed agent.
No, I am not.
Yeah. No. Anything else? Do you think there's anything else you'd like to cover, Rosemarie?
Well, you know, Tracy, I do a lot of programs around the country. Oftentimes there's still a lot of reticence about how do you have this conversation. And it does become difficult. So if we have some new agents on the call that have never had the conversation, here's my recommendation. Go out with an experienced agent and let them mentor you. Ask them if you could find the prospect and somehow split the commission, giving them a little cut, giving you a little cut, and just letting them take it over so that you're the behind-the-scenes mentoring type of agent to learn from some of the pros that have done this. Go on a few calls, share the commission with them so that you understand what it really takes to have that conversation and know in your heart that you could do this independently. Maybe do some role plays in the office with some of the other agents and find that you have the confidence to do this. It's not an easy conversation to have. So getting a mentor, getting a partner, shadowing with someone, I think are all great ideas as you're just starting out with selling DI.
I agree, and I just want to say if you're new and you don't know who your Plus Group partner is, because we can certainly help you with that, you can either send me an email, tracy@plusgroupunderwriters.com, and I can tell you who your local person is and get you hooked up with them. That's what we do. I mean, we're the experts. We're here to help you, and we provide training, and we provide you, we'll do the quotes for you, and we will guide you along the way, because it is, especially if you're new to DI, it's different than probably most of the things you've been doing in the past. So we'll be happy to help you with that. So either you can contact me directly, like I said, Tracy, T-R-A-C-E-Y, @plusgroupunderwriters.com, or you can go to our Plus Group website at www.plusgroupunderwriters.com, and you can find out your local person, and again, we can help you. so I think that we covered everything, Rosemarie, unless you have any last words you'd like to tell us.
Just go forward and do good work and realize that this is a product that is needed. It's not one that you have to scare people to buy. It's needed.
Great. I agree, and thank you, Rosemarie, for sharing your life and the information with us, and thank you all for joining us today. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.